How you doing, everybody? Today, I wanted to see just how dead runecrafting really is. We'll begin with the first one that you run into at 77 runecrafting. We're going to look at blood runes up here at Zeah. I'll begin the timer for each lap when we start at the dense runestone here, and in the timer for the lap once we craft and return to mine again. We will do 5 laps and see on average how long they take, how much XP we'll get, and most importantly, how much GP we'll make. We'll see after 5 laps. Once we get to the essence, that's time. Here are the details of each of those 5 laps. However, I'm only really interested in the average, which should look something like this. Since laps are 8 minutes long, that gives us 7.5 laps an hour. So if we do 7.5 times 64,000, that gives us 481,000 GP an hour. And if we do the average XP multiplied by 7.5, that gives us about 37,000 runecrafting experience an hour. And since we have nothing to compare it to, this tops off the charts for money and experience an hour. And I think next we're gonna go ahead and check out the True Blood altar, see how that compares. We're gonna be using Edgeville as our base for this one. Since I have 88 agility, an inventory space will be for the Summer Pie to use the 93 agility shortcut. We also have the Colossal Pouch and the home teleport to be able to get back to Edgeville. I'll start the time for each lap as soon as we pull up the bank interface. We'll run around the river to use the fairy ring to teleport over to the caves, and in the timer for each lap once we pop the interface back open. So we'll get started and I'll see you for the analysis. And coming up on the end of the 5th lap, there we go. Let's get our average of the 5 laps real quick. Average lap time is 1 minute 30 seconds. We were getting 682.5 XP a lap and getting roughly 20,000 GP per lap. So if each lap is a minute and a half, that means we can do 40 laps an hour, giving us 801,000 GP an hour and 27,000 XP an hour. But we're not quite done with blood runes yet. Let's grab a blood essence or two and head back to Zeah to see what difference it'll make. It's interesting to see that if you want XP, go ahead and stay at Zeah, and if you're looking for GP, go ahead and run to the True Blood altar. And we're back up at Zeah, now with our blood essence in our inventory. Let's see how much more money this can make us. Again, coming up at the end of the 5th lap, right now. Grab our numbers for the last lap here. As normal, we're mostly concerned about the average metrics, which would be, we get 7 minutes 48 seconds for an average lap time, about 77,000 GP per lap, and 4,592 experience per lap. We can do approximately 7.5 laps an hour, so that would give us 579,000 GP an hour, and about 34,000 XP an hour. So far the True Blood altar is still leading with the GP per hour, and Zeah Blood runecrafting without essence is actually leading for experience an hour. But if you want to trade out on 3k XP to gain about another 100,000 GP an hour, go ahead and grab the blood essence. And now I want to check the blood essence at the True Blood altar as well, see how much more we can bump that up every hour. So without beating around the bush too much, let's just jump back into the True Blood altar. I'll see you in about 10 minutes or so. That's the 5th lap completed, giving us these details for each run. When we get the average of all 5, it gives us 1 minute and 28 seconds per lap, just a little under 26,000 GP a lap, and 661.5 experience a run. That gives us about 40.5 laps an hour. Let's round that on the lower side for 40 laps even an hour. Looks like that gives us a little bit over 1 mil an hour, and we're looking at 26k XP an hour. So adding into the essence to the True Blood gives us about 200k GP more an hour at the cost of about 1k XP. I'd say that's pretty decently worth it. Now that we're finished with the blood runes, we begin to take a look at the soul runes. Back to Zeah we go. I forgot a chisel. And now for our last little bit under hour at Zeah. I'll see y'all after another 5 laps. Our last trip up to the altar. And as we approach here at the end, that ends our time and gives us our final stack of runes, as well as these stats for each of the laps. But mainly we're caring about the average between the 5 laps, which looks a little bit like this. So at 8 minutes and 32 seconds an average lap, we can do barely over 7 laps an hour, and that'll give us 647,000 GP an hour, and give us 43,000 experience an hour. Looks like so far the soul runes are winning in terms of experience an hour, and are just in the middle of the road for GP an hour. So if you want to get to 99 a little bit quicker, and don't mind losing out on a few mil along the way, soul runes are pretty nice. Now to explore something I have never done yet. Being at 95 Runecraft, we have unlocked Wrath runes. Let's go check them out. Well, we made it to the Myths Guild. Brought some Dragonfire protection since we're going to be running past some to get to the Wrath altar. We'll go up the stairs, we'll begin each lap timer at the bank, and end it when the bank interface opens again. We'll check back in after 5 laps and see what that brings us for information. I wonder if this is even worth it. And we're here at the end of lap 5. It looks like that'll ultimately give us, after we examine the stack of runes, we have these stats for each lap. And of course, mainly we want to see the averages, which is this. Since we have 1 minute for a lap, everything is easily multiplied by 60. Shockingly, that actually brings us to the number 1 spot in terms of GP per hour with 1.4 mil. And it ends up being just a little bit less experience an hour than the Zeah Blood Rune Crafting, coming in at 31,000 XP an hour. Looks like if I'm wanting to go for pure GP, Wrath runes are currently the way to go. Finally, to end this little rune crafting marathon, I wanted to dive back into the Zeah altar up at 95 rune crafting. See how that compares with the rest of these. Here we are ending the last lap. That gives us these stats for each of the individual laps. So that gives us this for our average based among the 5 laps. That gives us about 55 laps an hour here at the Zeah altar. Looks like the Ourania altar comes right in the center in terms of GP per hour, but it's actually relatively competitive for Guardians of the Rift in terms of XP per hour, taking the number 1 spot at 55,000, and if I remember right, Godder at the moment usually gives me about 55 to 60,000 XP an hour. Well, it's nice to prove myself wrong that runecrafting isn't entirely dead as a money-making skill. It just kinda sucks that now it's locked behind a 30-hour grind for the Rayments. Enjoy the rest of the day, everybody.